Marshall Peak Chapter 3283. The foggy sky seemed to have no edge. Yang Kai didn't even know if he had a chance to leave. Fortunately, in the midst of this celestial phenomenon, neither he nor the Sheephead King dared to move too much, lest it cause a counterattack from the celestial phenomenon. In this way, even if the Sheephead Lord is far superior to Yang Kai in strength, there is little hope of catching up with him. 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. One person, one king, still wandering in this misty sky. The road ahead seems to be endless. Yang Kai even suspects that the foggy sky phenomenon has the effect of its own maze, otherwise, even if he is slow in swimming in one direction in 10 years, he should go out. His mood has gone through the initial irritability and restlessness, and now it is no longer fury. He originally planned to use this foggy sky to get rid of the chase of the Lord of Sheep's Head and rush back to the battlefield to participate in the battle between the two clans of Man and Ink, but now that 10 years have passed, the war over there is already over. Who's winning? How are the casualties on the human side? Has the remaining half of the Black Giant **** been killed? Yang Kai didn't know that he was in jail now. Even if he knew this, it was useless. The most urgent task was to get rid of this misty sky first. After 10 years of cultivation, his injuries have long since healed, and his strength has returned to the peak, but the Sheep's Head King is still wounded, unable to use Mochao. His injury is difficult to recover. However, this guy has always been behind him, never staying away, making Yang Kai a little annoyed. It is not easy for him to get rid of the other party. This misty sky greatly restricts the movements of the two of them. Lord Sheephead insists on chasing him. Unless Yang Kai has the means to kill him, he can't get rid of it at all. In 10 years, Yang Kai also gradually figured out some of the doorways in this misty sky. Under the urge of the demon's eye, his left eye turned into a golden vertical kernel, which can break through the vein, looking for a possible way out in this mist. The Sheephead King who followed him reluctantly discovered that Yang Kai's course of action was erratic, sometimes turning, and there was no pattern at all. Finally, on a certain day, Yang Kai suddenly transmitted a voice to the rear. "This king, please have a discussion with you." The Sheephead Lord said quickly, "If you are asking for mercy, then you don't have to, unless you hand over what Kang gave you." Yang Kai said helplessly, "I have said that the old fellow Kang didn't give me anything. You don't believe me, nothing else. If you and I have been trapped for 10 years, it might be difficult to get out of trouble under this situation. Now, I have observed some traces and patterns in the mist recently, and maybe I can find a way to leave here." The Lord of Sheep's Head's complexion suddenly tightened, and his speed increased slightly. Yang Kai was aware of it, but didn't take it seriously. "Don't be nervous. With my current ability, it is difficult to get out of trouble, so I need to practice for a while. You don't want to be trapped here, right? If I can find a way out, it's good for you too." The Lord of Sheep's Head changed face. I don't know if what Yang Kai said is true or false, but what Yang Kai said is correct. If he can really find a way out, it will be good for both of them. Being trapped in this ghost place will make him uncomfortable. It's very. Even if the two have a long lifespan, if they really want to be trapped in it, sooner or later they will have their life depleted. You want to practice? Not bad. How do I know if you will take the opportunity to break T? This guy is so difficult to be a 7th rank, is it really worth it if he breaks through the 8th rank? I'm afraid I won't be able to catch up with him by then. Yang Kai said silently, "I have only been promoted to the 7th rank for hundreds of years. How can I break through so soon? Don't worry, what I practice is just a pupil technique." Really? The Sheephead Lord will be suspicious. At this point, I don't have to lie to you. Besides, you can see it when I practice pupil technique. Yang Kai explained. "How?" At this point, if we want to get out of trouble, we should work together. Cooperate with each other, don't embarrass each other anymore. The Lord of Sheep's Head groaned for a moment and nodded, "Yes." Saying this, stopped chasing. Yang Kai breathed a sigh of relief and stopped. If the other party really insists on chasing him, he has nothing to do. Although he can practice pupil technique even when he is being chased, his efficiency is much lower. If there is no external interference, he can do it wholeheartedly. Not long after being chased by the Sheephead King, Yang Kai urged the demon eye of the world exterminator in an attempt to break the illusion of this misty sky. After a full 10 years of work, he also saw some doorways, and when he was even more surprised, he felt that his demon's eyes were faintly sublimating. This is a sign of a breakthrough in pupil technique. When he was in Van Mogang and followed Van Moshian's ancestor to practice, he had heard Van Moshian ancestor mention it. In those days, Yang Kai had spent a lot of military exploits before he had the opportunity to listen to the ancestors of the 10,000 Demon Heaven personally teach them the two major pupil techniques. Over the years, his two pupil techniques have been improving, but he has never calmed down and specialized in these two pupil techniques. This time he broke into the foggy sky and gave him this opportunity. Although Lord Sheephead stopped chasing, Yang Kai didn't really believe him completely. He still had a ray of vigilance, and then urged his own power to operate in a special way in his eyes to polish his pupil power. This is an exquisite job, and it is also a job that requires a lot of effort and energy. No matter what realm a warrior has cultivated, no matter how strong his physical body is, he will have several weaknesses. Two of the weaknesses are the eyes. The reason why these two pupil techniques of Van Motion are difficult to practice is not because of how obscure they are. In fact, the introduction of these two pupil techniques is extremely simple. It only needs to motivate the force to operate in the eyes according to a special course of action. Just keep polishing the pupil power. Over time, the two major pupil techniques will naturally accomplish something. The difficulty lies in polishing this process. Eyes are the weakness of all warriors. Polished with their own strength, there is not much effect in the light and it may damage the eyes. If you are not careful, your eyes will pop open and you will become blind. It is said that in the early days of the 10,000 demon sky, a lot of blind people were caused by the practice of these two pupil techniques. Later, the top level of 10,000 demon heaven saw that the situation was not right, and if this continued, the entire 10,000 demon heaven disciples would be blind. This will list the two major pupil techniques as the secrets not to be passed on, not for those who are not elites, and they still need to pass many tests. Compared with the disciples of Van Motion, Yang Kai would not bear the risk of eye bursting. Because his two major pupil techniques were derived from the arrogant demon **** Moshang, the pupil technique. But his pupil power was not enough. With this natural advantage, he started out better than many disciples of Van Motion in the cultivation of the two pupil techniques. Much better, it can be said that he does not need to go through the two most dangerous early stages of practice. Moshang has already helped him lay the groundwork, and all he needs to do is to build a high-rise building based on this. 10 years of uninterrupted prying into the truth in the mist is also a practice. Now, it is no surprise that the pupil power is about to break through. Under the close attention of the Sheephead King, Yang Kai sat cross-legged, closing his eyes. His aura gradually calmed down as if he were dead. His expression moved, and he was determined to take advantage of this moment of violent trouble, and took Yang Kai down, but he considered the distance between each other and the treacherousness in the mist, and felt that even if he did make a sudden move, I am afraid that there is not much hope. What's more, this human race's 7th rank must be wary of himself at this moment. He really has actions. He won't sit here and wait obediently. Can only press down on the urge in my heart. As for Yang Karuo really found a way out. He could completely leave behind Yang Kai. This point he was still somewhat confident, otherwise he would not agree to Yang Kai's request. As time passed, Yang Kai felt that his left eye was getting hotter and hotter under the urge of his strength, and it gradually became hot, and there was a feeling of something blocking his eyes. He was not surprised and rejoiced, knowing that it was a magical. The ancestor Tian once said that the signs before the breakthrough are more and more intensive to polish the energy. After half a month, the sense of blockage became more and more serious, until it reached the peak at a certain moment. Yang Kahuo opened his eyes. Everything was as usual in his right eye, but there was a blood-red color in the left eye, his own energy swelling frantically, turning into a wave of shocks, pouring into the left eye. Not far away, the Lord of Sheep's Head stared blankly and looked solemn. Although he learned a lot of human race information through Mo Nest in the Great Forbidden of the First Heaven, that kind of understanding is separated by a layer after all. Today, seeing Yang Kai practicing the secret technique with his own eyes, he knows that human race has not been defeated by Mo race for so many years. There are some reasons. While he was pondering, Yang Kai suddenly heard a low growl, like a wounded beast. At this moment, Yang Kai's left eye was not only extremely hot, but also gave birth to a tingling sensation like thousands of needles. After a short while, the tingling sensation of 10,000 ants' hearts was born again, which was extremely sour and refreshing. Yang Kaxan's middle abdomen is slandered. The ancestor of Van Mogang never said that when the pupil technique breaks through, there will be these messy feelings. These disturbances of the ordinary open heaven state can be tolerated, but you must know that this moment is the critical moment of pupil technique breakthrough. A slight abnormality may lead to an error in the performance, and then it is more than a simple breakthrough failure, it is really going to burst. Yang Kaikiang endured all the discomforts in his eyes, constantly urging his energy to polish his pupils. After a while, a cloud of blood suddenly exploded in the left eye. The Sheephead King who was watching Yang Kai raised his brows when he saw this, and he didn't know whether he should be happy or worried. The good news is that there seems to be something wrong with Yang Kai's practice. Otherwise, how could blood burst from his eyes? What's worrying is that he failed in his practice. Can he find a way out? The strength of the king is indeed much higher than that of Yang Kai, but that is just strength. He himself has no way to get out of this strange celestial phenomenon. While thinking like this, Yang Kai suddenly turned his head and looked at him. As you can see, the Lord of Sheep's head is one of them startled. He thought that Yang Kai's left eye must have exploded, but looking at it at this moment, it was clearly intact. The blood red that had filled the left eye was gone, and the eyes were shining, and the golden vertical kernels that had spurred the demon eye, at this moment, it has become a cross benevolence. The Lord of Sheep's head clearly saw the reflection of his figure in his eyes, and suddenly felt an uncomfortable feeling. Feeling awe-inspiring in my heart, I realized that this pupil technique might be a little bit tricky, and the reflection in the eyes is definitely not so simple. At this moment, Yang Kai's eyes flashed with Shishiran's spirit and grinned at him. Your injury is not light, it's hard for you. The Lord of Sheep's head was pale. When the light flashed in Yang Kai's eyes just now, he couldn't help but feel a sense of being peeped, and cursed in his heart, this *** human race, this pupil technique of cultivation is indeed a bit extraordinary.